good-looking experience, museum-like, technological, that features the themes that have been very central in our work: friendship across religions, understanding the saints and the spiritual geniuses of other faiths, and how to cultivate an appreciation for prayer of other faiths, thereby lending hope to our reality here today. This is the concluding event of the 12th biennial convening of the Elijah Board of World Religious Leaders, and the second time that we've been hosted by the Brahma Kumaris in their Global Retreat Center in Newnham Courtney, about 20 minutes from where we are. It's been thrilling to walk through Oxford to get here. It's the kind of thrill, even I who come from Jerusalem don't get that kind of thrill, but most of you come to Jerusalem to get other kinds of thrills. It's been soothing, inspiring, restful, and loving to be hosted by the Brahma Kumaris. And it's been a great sign of friendship that we found ourselves here through the graces of someone who should and would be here, but she has the good fortune of marrying off a child right now in New York, and that's Reverend Charlotte Parker Bannister, who has been the meeting point for our group. And as she says, while she's sad not to be here, we're happy for her that this wonderful occasion that she's missing the meeting here today, a wonderful, joyful occasion of a wedding. But we say thank you to her in her absence. Our convening focused on the theme of the human person. The reason for this really has a very direct history. We started, as the Gaza war broke out, we started with a series of weekly prayer and study sessions devoted to the theme of human dignity. Feeling that both sides have lost the sense of the dignity of the other, we wanted to find a ground upon which we could convene prayer across differences of religion without having to take sides, without having to get into the discussions that were current in both communities, and to remind ourselves that there's a more fundamental spiritual reality, which is that we're humans, in many traditions created in the image of God. We must remember that even during these times of war and suffering. This in turn has led to broader reflection on the question of the human person, which in turn has led to further reflections on the question of the challenges that classical religious understandings face in the contemporary world with reference to the understanding of the human person. So we have spent several days with a kind of intimate sharing, looking at several topics, and I'm not going to tell you what they are for reasons that will become apparent immediately. And we have been looking in small groups at the question of what are the challenges, what can we as religious leaders of diverse religions within our own tradition and jointly in a collaborative way bring to the world today. We always try to share what we go through with a broader public, sometimes university public, sometimes students. In this case, it's primarily representatives of the Oxford interfaith scene. We've decided to start our presentation today, not by us telling you what we think the challenges are, but we want you to tell yourselves what are the challenges. And at the end of the program, we'll have a chance to see what questions and what issues were raised by you that we haven't addressed, that we might still address spontaneously from the, I don't know what to call this. It's not an altar, it's not a podium, from the elevated space here, semi-consecrated space, if you will. And what I'd like for you to do is the following. Turn to the person next to you. Of course, that it doesn't hold for our people because they've been through it, but there's really a significant representation of people who have not been spending the last few days. Turn to the person next to you. Take a minute and a half to share with the person what you think are the biggest challenges to your understanding of what it means to be human. Each one of you comes from a tradition, so it will be tradition specific. What is threatening it? What is challenging it? What are new issues? And then change roles. And after you've done that, you will be holding a certain question in mind. Then either we will address your question, or at the end, you will address your question to us. This is basically done just to prevent you from falling asleep. So with that, I invite you just to take a moment, share with your neighbor what you think the challenges to the human person today are. And then from there we will move on to the reading prayer.
And I'm going to say to those of you on Zoom, we can write in the chat what you think are the challenges to the human person. If you put them in the chat, then we'll be able to refer to them as we go along and see whether they've been addressed or not addressed. But now I'm glad you're getting a view of the panel that's sitting at the front, and you can see their diversity. And you can also do the task, putting in the chat what you think are the contemporary challenges to the human person.
With your permission, we'll take pictures of you talking to each other. Just ignore us. If anyone doesn't want a picture taken, let us know.
Okay. I apologize if the internet link is occasionally weak. That's another issue. I've seen my lines, my bars go a bit weak from time to time. Hopefully that won't continue. So please put some things in the chat. I'd love to see what you're thinking. What do you think are the contemporary challenges to the human person? Let's see if we get some responses in the chat. People here are doing the task. They're speaking to each other. So I hope we get some ideas in the chat. Don't have any yet. Individualism and social media, trapping me in my own bubble. I want to thank you, Stefan, for getting the ball rolling. Thank you. And I will tell you that we spent some time on both those topics, and it will be interesting to see whether the leaders address them. That's all. The group here are talking
Another
away.
30 seconds to complete the exercise by reversing roles.
Only 30 seconds to complete the exercise. So if you can add some things to our chat, that would be really great. Here we go. Individualism. Oh, thank you. Now we've got a whole lot of things. Who is my brother? Who is my sister? Ignoring communities, finding a perspective beyond tribalism, how to get involved and work for peace and justice. Thank you, everybody, for adding those very challenging, beautiful ideas. And I have to let more people in, which is great. I'll just tell them. It's lovely to see people, as I say, some oldies, some new people. Thank you very much. Claudia's here, lovely. So the exercise that people are doing here in the Oxford Centre is expressing their ideas for the greatest challenges.
The rest of your life to worry about other problems. Let's deal with the ones we already have on the table.
Putting our ideas in the chat.
I'm going to
now we're resuming.
Our speakers. I need to do a little exercise just to check the sound. From here, we don't hear anything because there's no sound. But I went out there and you hear well. Art, can you talk from there? I want to see if people can hear you clearly. If not, we'll have to come up to the podium. Just talk. No, don't shout. Just talk regularly like you want to. Now, does he need a microphone or not? Okay. So speakers go. I speak from here. Speakers go to the other podium. It's important when you're sitting in a structure such as this that people should hear, because otherwise the sound gets lost. Okay, we're going to go through the following procedure. We're going to go through the 3 topics that we want to address. The speakers will present them. I will present each of the speakers in turn. It's broken up into 3, 2, and 2 in terms of the speakers. We're going to go this way. In other words, clockwise. And we're going to have short 5-minute presentations by 3 or 2 speakers respectively. Give a chance of other panelists, which is not super convenient mic-wise, but we'll deal, to respond to that. Move on to the second cycle, move on to the third cycle, make certain that the speakers have spoken and the respondents have spoken, and then open it up. First of all, for you to tell us what questions you've come up that we haven't addressed, and there are bound to be such questions. I reserve the right to reject 3 questions, okay? Just in case I find that they're going to be too controversial. I don't think it's going to be harmonious. So I can't promise we'll deal with everything, but we'll take note of any questions that are asked. And then, as necessary, for you to pose questions. With that, I'm inviting as our first presenter, Dr. Maria Reis Habito, who is an ordained Zen teacher, affiliated with Lingju Monastery in Taiwan and with Zen practices. She teaches Zen currently in her environment in Santa Fe, but also in various centers in Europe, as well as in Israel. And Maria, by now I would welcome you to take your place by the parallel podium.
Just a little bit of fiddling while they adjust the camera.
Good afternoon, dear audience. Thank you
The cameras.
for being here.
Wait, we can't see.
I would just like to share one insight that struck me personally.
Maria, just a second. The work is if you do, which is sort of with a microphone. Closer to the mic. Otherwise, your sound gets lost. And even closer, just lean over if you can. Just lean over close to the mic so that it really picks you up.
So once again,
That's
this sounds better. So good afternoon, dear audience. Thank you for being here. I would like to share with you one of the many insights that struck me in this meeting, the Elijah Interfaith meeting that was gracefully, kindly hosted by the Brahma Kumaris and organized by the Elijah Interfaith Institute. I've been a member of the Institute for the last 20 years. So I was invited to speak on the topic of the human person. And dear friends, I wonder, do you sometimes feel that your heart is heavy and that your spirit is downcast if you look at all the problems, perhaps problems on the personal basis, but also the problems that the world, the global community is facing right now? And for me, a hint of an answer to that problem is to be found in the Hebrew scriptures. And that insight was opened up to me by Arthur Green, but also the discussions in our group. So we know the story in the Hebrew scripture where Adam is eating from the tree of knowledge. But at the same time, the tree of knowledge was no longer connected to the tree of life. So what does that tree of life stand for? Could we imagine it as seeing each and everyone, ourselves, others, and the whole of creation in the light of the divine light and beauty? And if we could see ourselves in that light, if we could see the whole of creation in that light, would something change in ourselves? Would we perhaps feel that sense of awe, of mystery, of the transcendent that is so oft amiss in our world where we try to find so many technical solutions to problems that actually often have a spiritual root, like the problem of the environment, of the ecology that my colleagues will speak about. So how do we see things in that light? The religious traditions give us the ways to do that in their own ways, through prayers, through meditation, through keeping silence. And we spoke about these things and we practiced them together through friendship. So the tree of life, we recently moved to New Mexico, which is in the USA. Even though my accent is German, you probably can hear that. And the Catholic tradition, weavings of the tree of life And the artists usually take a long time, up to 3 months, to just do one of those weavings. And I found it's made out of wool, and it is showing a tree with colorful birds in a beautiful light. And visitors who come to our home see it right away and remark on its beauty. So it's obvious there is beauty in this world, there is love in this world, and the beauty is expressed through our actions, through our relations with each other. So if we could only remember that when we as students get overwhelmed by the tree of knowledge, this enormous knowledge, we have to remember the tree of life and return to it in whichever way we can find. Because if we can return to that tree of life, to the beauty and the light of the divine, of the infinite, that shines in us, even though we are sometimes not aware of that. So if we can return to that with our sense of wonder and gratitude and beauty, there is also a tremendous sense of joy. Can you honestly say that you often feel that sense of joy? I am a Zen meditation teacher, and the figure of compassion, Guanyin in the Buddhist tradition, or it's Kanzeon in the Japanese tradition, is called our true joyful self. So our true self is joyful. And I think it is Teilhard de Chardin who has said, when joy is the surest sign of the presence of God. So when your heart feels heavy, when your spirit is downcast, seek for that presence and seek out people who might look for that presence with you. So I'm personally very grateful to the Elijah Interfaith Institute and to the Brahma Kumaris for providing the framework for us to get together as practitioners, leaders of the different religions, and share that sense of wonder, of awe, but also of serious discussion among ourselves, and to realize that basically all that we long for and all that we feel as true and beautiful in us is not different. There are different ways and different languages to express it, but if we look for that reality, we are sure to find it. Thank you.
Maria, listening to you, I realized the whole question of challenges to religious understandings somehow sidesteps the fact that, to begin with, religious understandings are a response to challenges. Well, in other words, it starts out with a challenge, the challenge of existence, the challenge of loneliness, the archetypal challenge of the split between knowledge, this is a city represents knowledge, and the experience, the spiritual life that's there. And therefore, even when we talk about contemporary challenges, we can't see these challenges as purely arising from contemporary times. They ride on fundamental existential, metaphysical challenges that our traditions touch upon when they ask what it means to be human. And what you're really telling us is that the answers to some of the contemporary psychological conditions in our human condition in society today, in many ways, is a continuation of those very same circumstances that led the great traditions to formulate their views.
Yes, I think that's correct.
Thank you. Thank you for that recognition. Our next speaker is Cardinal Christoph Schönborn, Archbishop Emeritus of Vienna, not so long ago emerited. Just a few months ago, at the beginning of the year, he left his post. I had the pleasure of being there for a party given in his honor, or for a conference given in his honor upon his retirement, a man who has done wonderful things, not just for his archdiocese, but for different parts of the Catholic world at large, a great proponent of interfaith, Jewish-Christian, and other relations. It's a great joy to have him with us, Cardinal Schönborn. As close as you can to the microphone. As close as you can to the microphone.
Sorry?
As close as you can to the
As
microphone.
close as I can, I
Like-
understand.
That's good.
Yeah, the problem of an old man. Yeah. Good evening to everybody. It's a joy and privilege to be in Oxford. My last long visit in Oxford was in 72. That's 53 years back. So much time has passed since. The human person is the first topic we were speaking about. What is the human person? In the perspective, I am a Dominican black friar, but for 34 years, bishop, and now Emeritus, Archbishop of Vienna, Austria. So my formation is very much in the Thomistic tradition with clear concepts. The basic affirmation of the Bible is the first sentence, Bereshit bara, and in the beginning God created heaven and earth. That means everything. So if everything is created, nothing is out of self, out is self. Everything has received its being. And that's true for everything, also for the human person. We have not made ourselves, we have received ourselves. We have been conceived and received, and our parents had said yes to us. To whom said they yes? They didn't know us. We believed that God knew us. God knows us. They expected a child. Then they knew that perhaps that, that is a boy or a girl. But who we are received. Ourselves, we have not decided to be. We have received being, and life is a gift. So what makes a person to be a person? Very simple. The person is a you and not an object. Somebody and not something. That's the basic difference, and I think everybody knows what is somebody and what is something. The microphone is something. The speaker is somebody. The Bible has a basic affirmation, but it's not an invention. It is a reality. God created man in his likeness and image and likeness. That's an amazing affirmation. That means that a person is somebody who reflects God, an image of God. And the astonishing thing is that he created man in his likeness, image and likeness. Man and woman, he created them. So we are human persons as man or as woman. That's the basic affirmation of the Bible. The first essential element is that nobody exists without relation. No man is an island. This is absolute certain. I always say we have two absolute certainties in this world. The one is that every human being is born from a mother. Till now, there is no exception. And everybody has to die. These two pillars are absolutes. And we have to realize our life between these two pillars, our birth and our death, and develop our personality. But a person we are from the very, very first moment till the last moment. A person. Person is always in relation. There is nobody can be alone. What we experienced, it was my first participation in the Elijah Institute interreligious meeting. What impresses me is that all together we are aware that a human person needs not only all the relations, the contacts, the network of relations, but to find the innermost, one's own. The biblical tradition speaks about the soul. We all have body and soul. One in body and soul. What is my soul? An atheist said, God, if you exist, save my soul if I have one. I have a soul. So what impressed me most, and that's my final point, what impressed me most in these 4 days of gathering, exchange, sharing, that all religions here present have this conscience that we have to go in our midst, find our inner life, that all depends from the living inner life. Call it the soul, call it the self, call it however you want. And I'm very grateful for this experience in these days.
If I can stop coughing, what I hear from you are two insights that again are classical, but also relevant to our reality today. We suffer from loneliness as part of our contemporary condition. And we suffer from a certain superficiality or exteriority. I'm not sure that's going to make the difference, but thank you. God bless. The sense of loneliness and alienation is because we don't live in relationship, and therefore the fullness of the human person is in relationship. But the depth of that relationship has to grow, or that capacity of relationship has to grow from the discovery of the interior dimension, the depth dimension, the soul dimension. And there are so many facets of contemporary life that make access to these two dimensions so complicated. When friends become friends on Facebook and not friends, and there's so much external stimulation in the world that takes one out of one's depth, then some and many of the ailments of contemporary society come about. And you are offering us a call to this dual dimension, the biblical call for relationship and the recollection of the depth of our being as expressed in the soul, as you say, if we have one. With this, I turn to Muhammad Suheyl Umar, Ustad, a spiritual teacher, Pakistan, a Sufi teacher, academic scholar, expert in Persian, Arabic poetry from Lahore. And we look forward to having you speak close to the microphone as the Quran instructs, so that we can hear you clearly.
I can prostrate on the microphone, don't worry. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Closer to the mic, Suheyl.
It's really a privilege to be in Oxford after many decades and be with you this evening. One of the most remarkable and striking features of the debates that we held at the Elijah Interfaith Institute, hosted the Interfaith Dialogue, hosted by the Brahma Kumaris Global Retreat Center. One of the most striking features of these debates was that the basic assumptions of the dominant discourse and the prevalent worldview and the challenges it posed to humanity were discussed for 4 days. And the basic assumptions of the prevalent worldview were brought into question. Discussions about human dignity, human rights, human predicament, and eventually the question, the human predicament, which eventually led the participants to ask the inevitable question, what is the human person? Another inevitable question, which dovetailed the earlier one, lurked in the wings. What is the cosmos? What is the big picture of reality? Now, this kind of questions in our age, which is usually called the age of anxiety, are no more answered by philosophers, theologians, even religious authorities. It is the physicist which is the philosopher of our age, the sage, even the prophetic voice. So some of us, me included, would like to take that path to approach our questions. What does it mean to be human? What is reality? And so on. So, Erich Schrödinger, while writing his second book after having his Nobel Prize, somewhere remarked that reality has a physical and a metaphysical aspect. And its physical aspect could be observed, quantified, and measured, while its metaphysical aspect does not lend itself to measurement, quantification, or observation. Now, following suit, David Bohm, after 1983, after having completed his non-locality experiments, when he formulated his theory, he said the same thing, but under a different rubric, that there is an implicate order of reality and there is an explicate order of reality. And then the same observation which Schrödinger had made earlier. And he was essentially saying the same thing. Now, how does this impact our question? What does it mean to be human? What is a human person? St. Augustine once had said that to be human means to be more than human. What does this more indicate? The supra-individual dimensions of human personality as well as the cosmic order is linked up with the concept of reality itself, the big picture. Reality either as a multi-storied building or as a mansion that has no upper story. This is in turn is connected to the microcosmic reality of the human self, of which we again have two models. One regards the human self as the point of intersection where the divine touches the human realm. To borrow a Jewish saying, that is dust and divinity. And this view situates the human microcosm in a hierarchical relationship with other levels of being. This model and its governing concept of reality are the shared heritage of all the known spiritual, metaphysical, and religious traditions of mankind. We can approach the question which I posed earlier in a more simple and straightforward manner by posing two questions again. Are you, in fact, a being created by God in his own image, appointed by him as his representative on earth, and accordingly given dominion over it, and equipped for the fulfillment of that function with a relative freedom of choice? Freedom of choice in thought and action, which reflects the total absence of the constraint attributable to God alone, but at the same time makes us liable to errors. So, are you essentially that and only accidentally anything else? Or, alternatively, are you essentially a specimen of the most advanced product so far known of a continuous and progressive evolution, starting from the more or less random mutation and stringing together of protein molecule in some warm primal mud, that mud itself being a rare and more or less fortuitous product of evolution of the galaxies from a starting point about which the physicists have not yet made up their mind. Now, there is a tremendous difference that separates these two perspectives. The first model suggests that man could either be a viceroy, vicegerent, or pontiff, or else a mere spark in the dark, a cunning animal with no destiny beyond the grave. And this drains your life of all meaning and makes it devoid of purpose. So the concept of man as the pontiff, a bridge between heaven and earth, which is the traditional view of the anthropos, the anthropocosmic vision, lies at the antipode of the modern conception of man, which envisages him as the Promethean earthly creature who has rebelled against heaven and tried to misappropriate the role of divinity for himself. Pontifical man lives in full awareness of the origin, which contains its own perfection and whose primordial purity and wholeness he seeks to emulate, recapture, and transmit. He is aware that precisely because he is human, there is both grandeur and danger connected with all that he does and thinks. His actions have an effect upon his own being beyond the limited spatio-temporal conditions in which such actions take place. And his actions can impact tremendously the world and the environment in which we all live. And the pontifical man also knows that somehow the bark which is to take him to the shore beyond after that fleeting journey, which comprises earthly life, is constructed by what we do and how we live in this human state. And this is very important point to ponder. Thank you.
So we have here, so again, returning to the sources, highlighting, as did the Cardinal, the notion of being created, recognition of our creatureliness, and some clear challenges emerging from the scientific view of the human person, the value of the human person, and the question of the purpose of the human person. With the loss of the view of the human person and responsibilities that come together with it, things fall apart, and this is the source of the challenges that we face. This is, I would say, the brief summary. I want to know whether there's anyone amongst the four speakers who are about to go who wants to respond to this topic of challenges to the very understanding of the human person before we move on to the next cycle. Anyone? In that case, let us move to let me introduce to you Swami Atmapriyananda from Belur, Calcutta, Pro Vice-Chancellor of Vivekananda University, the man who actually was the instrument, if we can put it that way, though he doesn't like to use that term, of the creation of the university that has multiple branches across India as part of the Ramakrishna mission, a physicist by training, a great intellectual theoretician, and for me, above all, a very, very close friend now for decades. Swami Atmapriyananda, please make yourself comfortable with the mic. You see how close I am with the mic? Try to emulate me.
Friends, as I'm coming from the Hindu tradition. May we begin with a peace chant called the Shanti Mantra, which is prefixed and suffixed to every Upanishad, which is called Vedanta. This Shanti Mantra, which is very well known, those who know can chant with me, occurs in the Kathopanishad, which is one of the Upanishads occurring at the end of Yajurveda. Both the teacher and the taught, the guru and the shishya, sit together, invoke the blessings of the divine, the supreme being, for the effectiveness of their teaching learning process. So we'll begin with that, chant in original Sanskrit, and give you a free translation based upon the masterly commentary of Bhagavan Shankara Bhagavad Pada. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvina Vadhetamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Supreme Being protect us both, the teacher and the disciple, by revealing to us the true nature of knowledge. May the Supreme Being protect us both, the teacher and the disciple, by revealing to us the application of the knowledge. May we both strive together for the acquisition of knowledge. May the knowledge and the wisdom that we acquire be effective and illuminative for the benefit of mankind. May there be no dissension or disharmony between us. Om, peace, peace, peace. I have been asked to address the question of technology. Science deals with fundamental truths about nature. It's an exploration into the external nature. Very often I have been asked what is the relation between the religion and science. My simple take on this will be, science is deep faith in the laws of nature. It's wrong to think that scientist does not need faith. He needs much more, because unless you believe in the laws of friction, you can't take a step. Unless we believe the sun and the moon will exactly follow their orbits, you can't be without panicking. A scientist is a person who has absolute faith in the laws of nature. And a religious person is one who believes in the laws of that supreme being who is responsible for controlling and regulating nature. You may not believe in one in that sense, but you may believe, as Albert Einstein said, my religion consists of of humble adoration of an illimitable intelligence which our dull faculties can comprehend in the most primitive form. The huge illimitable intelligence which is animating and manifesting itself in nature and probing into what is that intelligence, the nature of the intelligence, how it is working in nature as well as in all the beings, including the human beings, is a great exploratory research in the world of religion. And in the world of science, explore the external nature, including your own bodies. Science and technology are now dancing on the stage, as you can see, and the latest avatar of technology, which is now sweeping the world, is the so-called artificial intelligence, the AI. Some of you must have read the famous book by Roger Penrose, who was awarded the Nobel Prize a decade ago for physics. He was not a believer in artificial intelligence at that time. He raised the question, which artificial intelligence tries to answer: is the brain functioning algorithmically? You know what's an algorithm in computer science? Is the brain functioning algorithmically? Does the human brain think algorithmically, which means it is causally connected? Yesterday, I was drenched in the rain, and today I got cold. Why did you catch cold? Because I got drenched in the rain tomorrow. That's silly, because causality always follows a sequencing of time. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, it was called time. Time is a flow from yesterday through the present into the future. Now, is there causality built up in the human brain or not? This has been the question asked by the religions, by Vedanta, by Buddhism, and so on. He prefaces his famous book, the first book which he wrote, Emperor's New Mind. It's a parody of Emperor's New Clothes, in which he has an imaginary story. A super computer was to be inaugurated, and the inventor of this computer, with great pride, he says, ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to inaugurate near omniscience. I have a new way of inaugurating this. Any one of you in the audience can put the first question. Nobody dared. Who would like to appear stupid before this great omniscience in the computer? A little kid got up and said, sir, I will put the first question. Come on, kid. People said, oh, poor kid, he doesn't know. Anyway, go ahead. How does it feel to be a computer? So much of calculation went on and on. After an hour, the computer said, I do not know. The roar of laughter everywhere. This summarizes everything. Computer does many things. Artificial intelligence is intelligent as far as human intelligence can animate it, motivate it, and make it run. And therefore, the difference between the machine intelligence, the artificial intelligence, and human intelligence is very simple. There's a self-awareness in a human brain, a human person. I'm talking to you. Am I aware that I'm talking to you? Yes, that is human intelligence. An artificial intelligence can answer questions with tremendous accuracy and speed, sometimes fumbling, because the wrong inputs given to it. Is the artificial intelligent machine aware that it is doing it? No. The self-awareness is a fundamental quality of the human being, and which has been, we believe, given only to human being and not even the subhuman beings. There's a debate on that. Even plants have some kind of awareness. Apart from that question, so the artificial intelligence, how much place this should have in our system? Usually religionists are scared of anything which is new. The game started with Copernicus, who was forced to sign a bond saying that the sun rotates around the earth. This is what theology says, and therefore anybody going against this theology will be punished. It's against the Holy Scripture. This story is maybe a humorous story. Copernicus signed a bond and said, yes, I believe, I swear that the sun goes around the earth. Came out and said, I know the earth goes around the sun. To save my head, I had to sign this. This has been a constant conflict between science and religion. Religion is always claiming that something extraordinarily wrong is going to happen through the rise of artificial intelligence. Even now there's a debate. How much should we check it? The Hindu tradition, we have welcomed any new development with open arms and open mind. The Bhagavad Gita, for example, in the 10th chapter called the Vibhuti Yoga, very interesting yoga. Vibhuti means the glory of God, the majesty of God. All that you see around is the majesties of God, and the greatest majesty of God is the human being. When Bhagavan Sri Krishna describes the majesties of God, the first majesty, the first glory, the first vibhuti, aham atma gudakesha sarvabhuta ashayasthidaha. O Arjuna, I am that soul, I am that Atman, which is central to every being, not only human being. That is my greatest glory. If Sri Krishna had been here, he would have said, O Arjuna, among all the computer devices, I am the artificial intelligence. I remain as artificial intelligence because that gives you so much of accuracy and speed. Why we should embrace it, welcome it, and use it is because human brain is not always accurate. Human errors are possible. The human being is subject to feelings, emotions, as well as intelligence. My doctor friends used to tell me, no surgeon worth his name, even the greatest of surgeons, will not operate upon his own wife or children. Because the moment you know she is my wife and he is my child, something happens to the doctor in spite of all the intelligence and all the skill that he has to operate as a surgeon, will not be able to do it. But artificial intelligence doesn't know who is a friend and who is an enemy, who is a child. It mechanically does it. So this aspect of the artificial intelligence and technology is extremely useful for operations, as you know now. Robotic surgery, artificial intelligence, these are being constantly used because the accuracy and speed. And people have said, doctors have said that human doctors cannot be that accurate and cannot be that impeccably correct and speedy. Therefore, in talking about the artificial intelligence and the developments in science and technology, nothing is challenging to the human brain or the human being. We absorb it as our own, because after all, the human intelligence which is given right to artificial intelligence, and the human intelligence, we believe, is a part of the cosmic intelligence, which is God. Thank you.
Alon is inviting the speakers to move to the audience because from where they're sitting, they can't hear anything. So that's what's going on here while there's a slight delay. But some of them are saying they can hear. He couldn't hear, he moved down and he's
Just had the experience of being And I can tell you that the positioning of the microphones is such that you hear much better than they do. So I just told the friends here, we've had the photo op, we've been a panel, we've been up. If we want to hear each other, we need to get down there, which really touches on one of the themes we've had all along, which is humility. We've been talking all along about the importance of humility. So if you want to hear the other, you got to go down. You can't stay up. So this is what we're going through. I've recommended to everyone to just practice humility geographically. Go down a few steps, you'll hear the other better. Those who want to are welcome to stay, but several Art, you don't want to go down? You're speaking next. So speak from the floor. Oh, you can step. Okay, fine. So just to summarize briefly the points that Swami made. Some traditions fear technology. Some traditions fear artificial intelligence. Swami says there's nothing to fear. We have to embrace it has what to give. We should not be in a position of fear. The foundations for fearlessness is the fact that we recognize the uniqueness of the human person. Uniqueness of the human person is in feeling, in awareness, and in consciousness. He appealed again to the term that Cardinal referred to, which is the term soul. And therefore, if you have that power of soul, and you have that awareness, then you need not fear because it doesn't step into the domain that is uniquely human, but fulfills practically functionalities that we need. I think this is a summary of what the message was. Yeah, okay. And now we're going to hear a Jewish take on this from Professor Rabbi Arthur Green, a foremost contemporary Jewish theologian, professor of Jewish thought and Kabbalah, a man who has headed 2 seminaries, he's trained thousands or hundreds of rabbis, and one of the most important theological voices in Judaism today. Close to the mic, Art.
Dear friends, our sages tell us that the teaching, Torah, existed before the world, that God looked into the Torah and created the world, or in the words of John the Evangelist, and you can see him in the last panel up here to say hello to him, in the beginning was the Word. What does this mean? It means that behind the whole enterprise of existence, there lies meaning. Existence itself, all that is, all the galaxies, the entire planet, the whole process of evolution, everything that has happened, is part of meaning, is an outer layer for an inner layer of meaningfulness. The Harvard biologist Stephen Jay Gould tried to prove that evolution was without teleology. But that cannot be proven because that's not a matter for the biological sciences, that's a matter of philosophy and theology. It is going somewhere. All the scriptures exist for this purpose. They are doorways into that meaning that inheres in existence itself. They are doorways into that meaning that inheres in existence itself, not only in their teachings, not only in their scriptures. But religion departed from that use of scripture. Scripture was read fundamentalistically and as a source of authority. You must do this because it says so. You live this way because it says so. But not as doorways into a deep understanding of what reality and existence themselves are. As religion departed from that path, so thinking humanity departed from religion. And beginning in the 17th and 18th centuries, right here in this university town, much of it took place. Thought had to liberate itself from the domination of theology. The academy had to free itself from having religious theology dictate what its conclusions should be. In doing so, it set up its own new high altar, that of objectivity, of critical distance, of seeing things in an objective way. And it lost the doorway. It lost the doorway into the sense of the underlying sense of meaning, that it was in pursuit of understanding what this existence of ours is all about. Now we have faced the decades of postmodernism, which have gone further and said, no, there is no objective truth. There's my view, there's your view, they're all the same, and they're all arbitrary, they were all created by the human imagination, therefore they have no value. And there is no ultimate value at all. And everything is to be seen as relative, my truth, your truth. And does anything matter anymore? Does anything matter? Is there any doorway into discovering meaning, the meaning of existence, the meaning of the whole story of which we are such an infinitesimal part? I am not much of a believer in a God of punishment, but sometimes I think that that's why AI has fallen upon us, because we gave up thinking. Our humanity disappears in the age when the humanities disappear from the curriculum. Everything must be seen scientifically. Even the humanities must be learned digitally now and scientifically now and quantitatively now. And the spark of creative thought, the spark of artistic and creative thought has gone out. And so we were replaced by, thinking is replaced by these data sweepers called artificial intelligence, which of course do not think, but replace thinking. Replace thinking which has become withered. So now I go back to the two trees, which my dear friend Maria has adapted from Kabbalah into our Buddhist thinking. And that's exactly what our Elijah project is about, sharing thoughts and sharing ideas and sharing images. Yes, the two trees have been separated. As one who spent more than 20 years on faculty of distinguished universities, I know the pursuit of knowledge has been cut off from the pursuit of life. Who ever goes to a university? Who would think of going to university today in the Western world to become wise? My granddaughter is just filling out college applications now. Imagine if she wrote to them, I want to come to your university because I seek wisdom. Nobody seeks wisdom in universities anymore. Maybe you can still go to a Zen monastery to become wise. Maybe you can go to a Benedictine monastery to become wise. Nobody even thinks of going to university in pursuit of wisdom. Knowledge and wisdom have been cut off from one another. Wisdom is related to life. Wisdom is created to that teaching that underlies creation itself, the word, the primal word. But universities do not seem to have a way back to connect their great pursuit of knowledge and their tremendous accomplishments in every area, including the sciences, to that root of life, to that discovery of what it's all about. But there has to be such a learning. There has to be a way of turning back to the scriptures and turning back to all the great sources of wisdom in a way that opens them to life. The psalmist says, Yasim midbar la'agam mayim veres tziyah lemutzei mayim vayoshev sham re'evim. God turns the wilderness into a pool and dry land into a source of water, and the hungry may be settled there. The hungry, of course, are those whom the prophet knows as those who hunger not for bread and not for water, but to hear the word of the Lord. That word is the primal word. That word is that meaning that underlies creation. And we need to find a way again to translate it into language, to be able to say it in human language, and to bring the tree back to life, to take the inner word that will make the desert bloom, and again make the tree of human understanding a living source of renewed life. That's what it's all about. And that is where and how we will recover our humanity, even in this age where thinking itself is thought to be replaceable by machines. Thank you.
Thank you, Art. I may be getting it wrong. I think it was T.S. Eliot who spoke of wisdom lost in knowledge and knowledge lost in information. Yeah. So I think this is really our reality of wisdom lost in knowledge, knowledge lost in information. And now the contemporary challenge is that is accompanied not only by the amassing of knowledge, but also by the disregard for truth, the utter subjectivity, says Art, that comes along in the postmodern situation. And what it boils down to is that my truth, your truth, ends up being lack of contact with those depths that traditions bring as resources of knowledge. And if I understood correctly, he recommended we should go to Maria's Zen monastery in order to get there, thereby closing a circle within our process. So thank you for pointing that to us. And due to the shifts in the topography and utilization of this beautiful space, we're not going to try and create a conversation right now within the panel. That's not practical. We maybe can bring you there together. And therefore, we're going to go to our next speaker, who is Sister Jayanti, who is one of the leaders of the global Brahma Kumari movement, headquartered in Rajasthan. She herself from India, but she's been living in the UK since the age of 8. And as she has been entrusted with greater power and responsibility, she's recently spending more and more of her time there. She has been our gracious host at the Brahma Kumaris, and the focus now is going to shift from the challenges of technology to the challenges of the human person in relationship to other parts of creation. And Sister Jayanti, try to get as close to the mic as possible, but of course we've realized that down there it sounds better than here.
Thank you. A greeting of peace to my sisters and my brothers. Om Shanti. There are 3 things that are eternal. The first one is the divine, the supreme. The second is the soul, the inner being. And the third is nature, matter. And when you think about the word eternal and eternity, then the easiest way to describe it is in the form of a circle. And so what's been happening in recent times is that we've forgotten the self, we've forgotten the divine, and as a result of that, we've forgotten our relationship with nature.
Just providing a platform so Sister Jayanti can be seen. She's little, and now she's standing on a
It's
platform.
easy to become
and you'll see
elevated.
her now completely differently.
If you have kind brothers who can help you step up. When we come back to the awareness of the inner being, then we realize that all that we need in order to be able to experience contentment and happiness actually lies within the self. Because the inner being is the being that has truth, it has peace, it has love, it has purity, and it has joy. Is there anything more that I could want? And so in this awareness of the inner being, then I'm able to experience contentment and happiness in my life. And so can I come back to that state in which truly I'm connected with myself, and this changes my relationship with the world out there and nature itself. And that is, I find that contentment within, and I move away from materialism, I move away from consumerism. When we see nature as sacred, and definitely in the East, nature has always been worshipped, whether it's the sun, the moon, whether it's the rivers and the oceans, whether it's the mountains. We see something that is sacred in each of these aspects of nature. And when we change our vision towards nature, then we remember that it's Mother Nature, Mother Earth that's given us life, that's given us all that we have today. When you think about the economic value of a tree, it's a very different attitude to thinking about the value of the tree of life that gives us oxygen, that in fact not just gives us oxygen, but I discovered something very interesting in the Amazon while I was there during COP30 last week. The Amazon actually, the trees send out the vapor that create the vapor that actually envelops the earth, the whole atmosphere, and it regulates the temperatures of the world, and it also regulates the rain and the sun and everything else within. And so when we recognize something that has value beyond pounds and pence or dollars and cents, then we recognize that this is not something we made, but it has come to us as a gift from the divine. And in that awareness of the divinity, the one supreme being, the one who is the Lord and Master, but the one who also teaches us how to be able to use the things that we have been given in the right way. When we develop that vision of who we are, seeing ourselves as that inner being and connecting with the divine, then we're able to change everything in our lives. We're able to have the peace and contentment that we want, but you're also able to have the sense of responsibility of what we have to give back to nature. How long have we been taking from nature? Since the beginning of time, millennia. But now at this moment, having taken so much and having exploited and violated and aggressed nature, it's time for us to give nature vibrations of light, of love, of peace, so that the harmony of nature can be restored once more. It sounds a very simplistic way to look at what's going on in terms of our relationship with the world out there. But the reality is that it's only when I get to know myself and I again restore that link with the divine, that then I know how to be able to live in this world and enjoy the beauty that nature can give and everything else that nature has provided. So my hope is that because it is such a simple way to be able to restore balance and harmony, we'll take that time to go on that inner journey, and through that inner journey of change of consciousness and change of heart, truly we can again have what it is we need to do in the world, very alive in ourselves. And one world, one parent, one earth, one home, and a mission that we can all work towards together to create a better world for all. Thank you for your attention.
So we have a definite continuity here with consciousness and awareness as the defining element of the human person, continuity with the notion of the soul, continuity with the call of the religious vision for interiority, and translating that particular vision now into the domain of attitude to environment and nature, with a paradoxical outcome that if you want to protect the outward nature, you actually have to go inwards. This is quite a striking message, one I'd never heard formulated like that before. You want to protect the outer, you have to go to the inner, because that's what gives the value, that what gives the capacity for contentment, that's what allows you to simplify your life so that you can actually have the balanced approach towards outward reality by regaining the orientation between inner and outer. Thank you, Jayanti, for very fundamental and really simple but profound insight that you shared with us. Our last speaker in the cycle is Lord Archbishop Emeritus Rowan Williams, who really needs no introduction in the UK, and therefore I call upon Rowan.
For those who are not in the UK, Archbishop of Canterbury is one of the most senior positions that anyone can have, and it's the Archbishop of the Anglican Church, which is, of course,
it's a very great pleasure and privilege to be able to address this gathering this afternoon, as it has been a great pleasure and privilege to be part of conversation in the last couple of days. Each one of us, at every moment, is being made alive. It's not the case that we were made alive some time ago, whether 75 years or 25, but we are being made alive. Moment by moment, we are being created. As Cardinal Schönborn reminded us earlier on, we are not in charge of our own being in that sense. we receive being, life, joy is something we have to absorb with open hands and open hearts. And we are part of a universe in which life is always being given and received. I am being made alive now, but what is around me is also being made alive. And part of my calling as a human being is to give life as well as to receive it. That is the nature of the world we are in. Like the circulation of the blood in the body, so life circulates in the universe. And we are at peace when we know how to give and how to receive. That, you might say, is the fundamental meaning of the word ecology. Rational pattern of maintaining a household. The logic of living together. Perhaps that's a translation of the word ecology we might try out. The logic of living together. Not only as human beings, but as human beings among creatures, other creatures. All of us receiving life, all of us giving life. And the catch, you might say, is that we don't always know entirely how we receive life. Very often we discover the hard way, that when we isolate ourselves in certain respects, life ceases to flow into us. Whether it is in isolation from other human beings, or in the isolation from the natural world around us, which cuts us off from vital sources of living energy. I spoke of the logic of living together, of the way in which the word oikos in Greek, from which ecology and economy both come, means a household. And that means that one of the things our humanity is called to do is to belong. We are made to belong. There is a place for us in this great circulation of exchange and gift and life. And yet, we have sold ourselves the fiction that belonging and depending are somehow a great evil. The old joke, particularly dear to the hearts of Welsh people, is that the Englishman believes he's a self-made man, thereby relieving God of a terrible responsibility. We are not self-made, and yet somehow we treasure that fiction, that we are able to make ourselves, and we do not need to belong, to receive, or to depend. But what happens when we let go of our belonging and receiving and depending? We are lonely and we are angry. We do not know where to look for life. And so we create any number of myths and projections which enable us to say, my life is diminished, my life is unreal because of you, because of them. Out there is something threatening me, someone threatening me. If they live, I live less. The more I deny, the more I reinforce myself, my security. And so we build up identities, false and fictional identities, which we brandish against others. Because we are not able to belong in our world, we identify our belonging with our nation, our race, our religion, our class. angrily project onto the other the problem that we have generated by not belonging. To learn how to belong is to learn how to open our lives and our hearts to the gift given us by where we are, the home we inhabit together in our universe. And that means we learn how to belong, not only with others, but also with that which is the ultimate source of this circulation of life, and how to belong with ourselves, how to be at home with ourselves. And that's the spiritual task, we might say, summarized in a wonderful line in the evening hymn of Bishop Thomas Ken, the great Church of England teacher of the 17th century, talking about evening prayer, that with the world, myself, and thee, I, ere I sleep, at peace may be. With the world, myself, and thee, the infinite, the unconditioned, I, ere I sleep, at peace may be. It's a good prayer to end any day with. Perhaps a good prayer to end this day with. But it reminds us of that belonging, which is fundamental to who we are, and the refusal of which is at the heart of so many of our conflicts, and at the heart of that suicidal, literally suicidal conflict with the natural world around us, which arises when we see it only as an object for our use, not as a source of our life. And one more quotation from the Christian tradition, from a text which many Christians read perhaps more often than usual during the Advent season preparing for Christmas. It's the vision in the book of the Revelation to St. John at the end of Christian scripture, where a voice comes from heaven saying, "Behold, the dwelling place of God is with human beings." But if the dwelling place of God is with human beings, if God has made God's self at home with human beings,